as we've been telling you, Order of Baobab recipient Don Mattera has passed away and was buried yesterday at the Heroes Acre. His favorite line, "They came this way and scattered our lives." It was his favorite line of the late quintessential Mattera. We're joined now by another giant in the cultural space, the Executive Director of Funda Center, Mutsumi Magene. And from Zambia, we're joined by renowned music teacher, senior lecturer, and head of music at Rusangu University, Mokale Kwapeng, to take us down memory lane following the passing of the poet. Gentlemen, thank you so much to both of you for making the time to speak to us today. Mutsumi, perhaps let's start with you and just that rendition of a poem you have in remembrance of Ntate Mattera.
I actually shared it in the group, but I just want to pay tribute to Brazinga by way of perhaps talking about how I got to meet him, because it was a very interesting combination of elements. I had heard about Brazinga as a poet, as a cultural activist, and also as a freedom fighter. I had not really met him as a teacher, but also as a humanist, as a Pan-Africanist. So what happened was that somewhere in the 80s, I was basically given a directive by Matsumela Manaka to go to Mail and Guardian, where there was a cadet program for training of young journalists. And Matsumela then said to me, there is a need for somebody who can play drums, for reading of poetry, but also to get some young cadets to understand how rhythm is important in terms of looking at the world, but also responding to words. And I went to Mail and Guardian and I met with students that were studying to become journalists. And it was a very short session. And he said, well, thanks for coming. Melaiti, please, it's a simple session. I would like you to play drums, and these young people are going to read poetry and also read prose to rhythm. That's how I met this giant of a poet, but also of a teacher who has a passion for young people. In fact, that is why where he worked in El Dorado Park and Soweto broadly, he was highly regarded as a teacher to youth. And this is where I guess his connection with youth was mostly about the way he grew up in the hard environment of Sophia Town, where he really found his way to using the word as a weapon. I mean, people talk about memory is a weapon. In fact, that poem and that book is about how cultural activists must push the campaign towards making sure that the national memory is not lost. So in that way, he worked with young people in order to make connections between the past and the future. He also was part of an important project within the Ministry of the Department of Arts, Culture and Heritage in the 2017, 2016 of this decade, where the minister established the Living Legends program, and we had a number of about 10 legends that came to Funda to work with young people to share their history, their perspectives on the creative arts. And he was one of the poets who came. The other one is Bra Wali Sirote and Bra Willie Kosizile. And so this was for Funda as an education institution and also as an arts development institution, we had sessions where this whole question of the conversation between elders and youth was opened up, and young artists were able to share the same space and get to understand how Brazinga sees the world, where he comes from and where he's going. And basically where he was going was to the last era in life of promoting a humanity that unites everyone beyond Christianity and beyond Islam. And he was a devoted Muslim who preached peace, who preached unity of humanity. So that's how I got to be linked to this giant of a poet, of an activist, but also of a Pan-Africanist.
You know, Mokale, I'm happy that Mutsumi is bringing up the instructive nature of this giant that we're celebrating today, because both you and Mutsumi used to be my teachers at Funda, teaching me music and piano, and I apologize that I never got to show the world some of the things you taught me. But this just needles the thread of the path that Dr. Don took, and you worked with him as well. Tell us about some of the seminal works that you're able to produce with him and what they taught you about the man.
Well, my first encounter with Brad Don was actually a chance meeting. You know, we just met on the streets. It was in the 80s. I was a student at Wits University. I just met him on the streets. I knew his poetry. I followed his writings on Sowetan, and I just pounced on him, introduced myself. But typical Bradon, he embraced me. You know, we interacted as though we knew each other for a long period of time. But then let's fast track into, you know, the 2000s, 2006. When the National Arts Festival in Makanda, then Grahamstown, commissioned me to write a work to commemorate the June 16 riots. And then I had his anthology of poems, the Azanian Love Song. The first poem that I read was about the death of Hector Peterson, and the title of the poem is First Victim. When I read that poem, the imagery, the power and ethos in that you know a poem, just took me to another plane. I started, you know, musical ideas started flowing. And for that, you know, the commissioned work was for about, it was a 25-minute cantata for choir and orchestra. And I used 4 of his, you know, poems. And they just gave me creative, you know, energy, and the output was just amazing. So we never worked together, but you know, I actually used his poetry, and I was glad that he gave me the permission to use the poetry. Then in 2010, I got another commission to write a work for you know, by an American commissioning agency, to write a work for a choral festival, and I used yet another you know, a poem called Letlangbana. Actually, it's Let the Children Decide, but then I translated it into Tswana, Letlangbana. So the beauty with the poetry of Braden, you can get the rhythm, it create, you know, you can get the images, and that actually inspired me to create, you know, some of the music that I did for the cantata, which is titled Cantus in Memoriam 1976. And his poetry was quite central, in the creation of that work. I think the musical shape was actually given impetus by the poetry of Bradon.
As I speak to both of you, I just realized the urgent need of South African young people and the next generation for heroes. Mutsumi, your thoughts about how South Africa, we know he was the recipient of the Order of Baobab, but just your thoughts about recognition of excellence in the arts. Was Don given sufficient recognition?
I would want to generalize it, really, because, you know, by nature, artists are constructive deviants. And whilst they played a major role in the liberation struggle, most of them who contributed towards the liberation of the country, there really has not been any recognition given to artists. And the best recognition any government gives to artists is by integrating these artists into society so that they can play their role of inspiring young people, of promoting spirituality in society, of being critical of whatever or whoever is the government of the day. And since 1994, unfortunately, artists, the role of artists in society has not been given attention. I'm not sure what the reason is, but you can see from for instance, the extent to which community art centers have literally been wiped off from most communities. You can see from the way the funding and development of community arts has changed from the former apartheid era, where local government was very important in supporting and nurturing the arts in society. Post 94, that type of focus disappeared. So even if we can, for instance, give the various orders of the Baobab or Ikamanga to artists, it ends at the level of that government recognition. It does not go into getting artists to be integrated with particularly young artists who are looking for models, who are looking for ways or a language of expression that perhaps is contained in the elders who are not supported that much. That is why it was important at Funda when the department or the Ministry of Arts, Culture and Heritage committed to funding these legends to come into the community and speak to young people and be at, for instance, institutions such as Funda. So the answer really is we as society and government have neglected artists, and we have missed out on their role in transforming society to become a free, forward-looking and innovative society. As it is today, we have the disintegration of society, and artists are being turned into influencers and idols that really don't play the role of rebuilding communities.
Mokale, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked about sufficient recognition, but just to weave into that the fact that you yourself, quite a commodity, an arts commodity in South Africa, making the decision to go practice in Zambia. Is this perhaps related in any way to the sense of feeling not supported in your country?
Well, I have mixed feelings about that. Yes, it is true. There is very little recognition and opportunities for artists, back home, more especially if you are in academia. So in my case, I straddle the two worlds, the world of academia and the creative world, where I create compositions. And now, the sad part is that we don't have opportunities where we can showcase what we have created. It is true. Mutsumi has actually alluded to that giving these awards by government is not sufficient. We need to create performance opportunities. We need to create spaces where senior artists will interact and transfer skills to younger artists. On the other hand, one of the reasons why I took this path is the deep Pan-Africanist the spirit in me. I moved. It was a deliberate move to come to Zambia. Because I felt the connection with my African brothers over here. On the other hand, yes, it was an opportunity that I would not have had if it was at home. So I do have mixed feelings about this. And on the other hand, I am glad that I am in this space. I'm able to see things from a continental, I've developed a continental perspective. I'm able to appreciate several things that are happening in other African countries. But I would want to underscore and really emphasize the need for government to create those linkages between senior artists and younger artists. The intersection, synergy that is created will actually help in shaping future artists in the country.
The very continental perspective and Pan-Africanism that characterized the person that we are remembering today. Gentlemen, just in terms of time constraints, we're not able to continue, but thank you so much for making the time to speck to us today. Thank you so much to both of you.
You're welcome.
Mutsumi Magene is the Executive Director at Funda Arts Center in Soweto, and of course, Mokale Kwapeng, who is a senior music lecturer at Rusangu University in Zambia, remembering Bradon.